Welcome to the lectures on political process in Maharashtra. My name is Ms. Greta Maria Castellino and I will be recording a few lectures for you on paper 4. Here's a short disclaimer. This video lecture is strictly meant for understanding the concepts and clearing doubts of the distance learners enrolled in the Institute of Distance and Open Learning, IDOL, University of Mumbai. It is created solely and purely for academic purposes. The views and opinions expressed by the lecturer and content developer are in his or her individual capacity. IDOL does not endorse any controversial and sensitive content. If the images, graphs, maps are taken from online sources, they will be used only for academic purposes and not for personal use. So let's begin with the first chapter. The title is Historical Background of Political Process in Maharashtra. The unilingual state of Maharashtra came into existence on 1st May 1960. However, Maharashtra as a geopolitical entity has been in existence for thousands of years. A brief review of the immediate past, that is, the period from 1818 to 1960, will give us an insight about the contemporary political process in Maharashtra, as no political process takes place in a vacuum and has its roots in the past. With a view to understand the contemporary political process, we are going to take a brief review of the nationalist and social reform movement, the non-Brahmin movement, and the Dalit movement. In the recent past, Maharashtra came to be ruled by several Hindu dynasties, the last being the Yadavas of Devgiri, who ruled up to 1307 AD. This was followed by the rule of various Muslim dynasties for nearly 30 decades, which is 300 years. Throughout the Hindu and Muslim periods, the area of contemporary state of Maharashtra was split up politically and was under the control of different sovereignties. A new political era began with Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. He established his kingdom in the latter half of the 17th century in defiance of the Muslim leaders of the Deccan and the mighty Mughal Empire. Around the middle of the 18th century, the Maratha power reached its zenith under the leadership of the Peshwas. The Third Battle of Panipat of 1761 struck a deadly blow to the Maratha hegemony. The region then came under the direct rule of the East India Company in 1818. This region became a part of the Bombay Presidency. Maratha and the Berar, which is Vidarbha region, were a part of Hyderabad state. The rule of the Bhonsles of Nagpur came to an end in 1848 and the region became a part of the central province. After the short historical background of the rulers, let's discuss the social reforms movement. The social environment in Maharashtra during the 19th century was regressive and stagnant. The Western educated intellectuals were aware of the fact that the society was in the shackles of the rigid caste system and the exploitation of lower castes was a major social problem confronting them. So, we are going to look at the issues faced by women, caste-based discrimination, universalization of education, and socio-religious reforms that were brought about. Let's begin with women-related issues. A large number of anti-women customs and practices prevailed during the 19th century. These included child marriage, widow at an early age, denial of the right to remarriage, and the resultant pathetic conditions of women included polygamy, the custom of sati and devdasi, female infanticide, and the parda system. The movement against customary child marriage in the Bombay province was led by Behram Malbari. His efforts led to the enactment of the Consent to Marriage Act in the year 1892. Gopal Ganesh Agarkar, Gopal Hari Deshmukh, Pandit Ramabai, Justice M.G. Ranade, and Ramabai Ranade had also opposed the custom of child marriage. With a view to support the helpless widows and their children, Mahatma Phule had established Bal Hatya Pratibandhak Gruha in Pune. The right to remarriage of widows was advocated by Agarkar, Deshmukh, and Maharshi Karve. The most noteworthy of his work was establishment of a number of educational institutions which included Indian Women's University in 1916. Mahatma Phule established the first school for girls in Pune in 1848. He educated his wife Savitribai, who later became the first woman teacher. Rajarshi Shahu, the ruler of the princely state of Kolhapur, too promoted the cause of women's education. He took stringent measures to end the practices of Devdasi, Joktini, and Mausili in his state. Now, let's look at some caste-related issues. Mahatma Phule established the Satyashodhak Samaj in 1873. The objectives of the Satyashodhak Samaj was felt in Satyashodhak Dharma. He refused to accept the authority of the Vedas. He wrote many books and pamphlets to propagate his ideas. Gulamgiri and Shetkar-Yasa Asud are the most noteworthy of his works. Phule coined the term Nirmik for the God who created the universe and regarded all human beings as his children, and therefore entitled to equality of status and opportunities. Rajarshi Shahu Maharaj abolished the Mahar Vatan, the age-old practice of segregating the Dalits, and the practice of untouchability in the Kolhapur state. Maharshi Vitthal Ramji Shinde espoused the cause of untouchability by establishing the Depressed Classes Mission Society in 1906. His association with the Indian National Congress led to the adoption of the welfare of the depressed classes in the agenda of the Congress. Now let's look at universalization of education. In the 19th century, the social reformers strived hard for the spread of education. Mahatma Phule demanded free and compulsory education for all up to the age of 12 years before the Hunter Commission in the year 1881. He also demanded vocational technical training for agriculturists as they were the largest taxpayers. To enable the individuals of lower classes or lower castes to pursue education, Shahu Maharaj started a number of boarding houses like Maratha boarding house for different caste groups. Shahu Maharaj made primary education free and compulsory in the Kolhapur state in 1902. Shahu Maharaj was the patron of Deccan Education Society and had given a donation of 2 lakhs to Fergusson College at Pune. He had also given a huge donation to Pune Girls' School. Lokmanya Tilak, Gopal Ganesh Agarkar, Vishnu Shastri Chiplunkar established the Deccan Education Society to spread higher education. Similar efforts were made by Jagannath Shankar Sheth, Bhaudaji Lad and other social reformers in Bombay. Socio-religious reforms. The Satyashodhak Samaj founded by Mahatma Phule, the Arya Samaj founded by Swami Dayanand Saraswati, the Prarthana Samaj founded by Dr. Atmaram Pandurang, and Dr. Bhandarkar stirred to promote socio-religious reforms, rational religious belief, humanism, and religious tolerance. They opposed the unhealthy socio-religious practices. Now we'll begin with the next subtopic of this chapter, the nationalist movement. After the humiliating defeat and surrender by Peshwa Bajirao II, Western Maharashtra came under the direct rule of the East India Company in 1818. Nagpur sub-region of Vidarbha became a part of the central province in 1848. 4 districts of Vidarbha were acquired by British on a lease from the Nizam in 1861 and became a part of the Sipi and Berar province. The Marathwada region was a part of the princely state of Hyderabad till 1948. The process of emergence of nationalism started in western Maharashtra during the first half of the 19th century. First subtopic in the nationalist movement is intellectual resistance and economic nationalism. Maharashtra came in contact with the Western civilization in the early 19th century. The process of westernization led to the political awakening and Western education. The upper castes were the first to take advantage of Western education. The liberal political philosophy molded their thinking. This could be described as the germination of nationalist ideas. Bhaskar Pandurang Tarkhadkar was among the earliest critics of the East India Company. He wrote articles in the Bombay Gazetteer from July to October 1841 and created a sensation in which he critically examined the different aspects of the rule of the company and exposed the ugly features of the political policies and economic practices. He pointed out that the Charter Acts of 1813 and 1833 had made provision for the education of the natives, but that amount was assigned to the missionary schools. He also pointed out that the claim of promoting welfare of the people of India was hollow. He regarded the doctrine of lapse, that is, the dislodgement of the heir of Satara, as a conspiracy hatched by Sir Robert Grant, the governor of Bombay. Ramakrishna Vishwanath condemned the colonial mentality of the British rulers. In his monograph, he stated that England's colonies were captive markets for its manufacture. He pointed out that the company was engaged in illegal trade of salt and opium. He also criticized the company's recruitment policy and administration of justice, wherein discrimination was practiced against the people of India. He regarded the rule of the company as a calamity which had ruined the Indian economy and was responsible for the impoverishment of the people of India. Gopal Hari Deshmukh, popularly known as Lokhitwadi, advocated economic nationalism. In one of his famous articles, Lakshmi Salni Vilayat, that is, the wealth of India going to England, he put forth his views on the economic drain of India. Historians Padye and Tikekar regarded Lokhitwadi as the pioneer of the Swadeshi and boycott movements of the later years. These views of the intellectuals of the early period were developed into the economic drain theory by Dadabhai Nauroji and Justice M.G. Ranade. Institutional nationalism. The activities of the social reformers in the early decades of the 19th century paved way for the emergence of institutional nationalism in Maharashtra. The Bombay Association and the Deccan Association in Pune were established in 1852. The Deccan Association was short-lived, and in its place was established the Pune Sarvajanik Sabha in 1867. These two political associations were the predecessors of the Indian National Congress and played a significant role in creating political awareness in the Bombay province. So let's look at the two associations separately. Firstly, we look at the Bombay Association. The Bombay Association was established on 26 April 1852 with leading businessman Jagannath Shankar Sheth and the president Dr. Bhaudaji as its secretary. Nauroji Fardunji, Narayan Dinanath, Dr. Bhaudaji and Dr. Dadabhai Nauroji were among the most active of the intelligentsia in Bombay. The attitude of the association towards the British Raj was one of subservience. Therefore, there was no question of the association working against the British government. Their aim was to cooperate with the British bureaucracy in promoting mutual interests. Their purpose was to supplement the governmental channel of information to help efficient and just administration. The intelligentsia was not too happy with this style of functioning of the association. The differences led to the resignation of Bhaudaji and the association became defunct. Nauroji Fardunji tried to revive the activities of the association in 1867. The association received a boost with Dr. R.G. Bhandarkar and Justice M.G. Ranade taking its membership in 1869. However, the differences in perception of the businessmen who controlled the association and the intelligentsia came to the forefront again in 1872, and the association became defunct once again. Pune Sarvajanik Sabha. The Pune Sarvajanik Sabha came into being in 1867 and grew under the inspiring guidance of Ranade, G.V. Joshi and G.K. Gokhale. The Sabha involved itself in agitational politics and played a crucial role during the Great Famine and the Deccan riots of 1875. The Deccan dacoities, organized by Vasudev Balwant Phadke in 1879, together with the other happenings of the 1870s in the Deccan, led to the conspiracy theory propounded by Sir Richard Temple, the governor of Bombay. The rising political stature of Gokhale gave the Sabha a piece of prominence. Just to complete the Pune Sarvajanik Sabha and then we move into the Indian National Congress, the rising political stature of Gokhale had given the Pune Sarvajanik Sabha a place of preeminence among other associations in India. Its quarterly journal published the views of Indian intellectuals on issues of public interest. However, due to this whole conspiracy theory, the British government withdrew recognition of the Sabha as a public body. In spite of the hostile attitude of the government, the leaders of the Sarvajanik Sabha continued their political activities and they played a leading role in the formation of the Indian National Congress in 1885. Owing to the epidemic of cholera in Pune, the venue of the first session of the Indian National Congress was shifted to Mumbai. So now that we study the Indian National Congress, we look at its evolution in two phases. The first phase was 1885 to 1920. During the period from 1885 to 1920, leaders from Maharashtra played a dominant role in shaping the policies of the Congress. The Congress derived many benefits from its close connections with the Bombay Presidency. Dadabhai Nauroji, Badruddin Tyabji, Firoz Shah Mehta, Gopal Krishna Gokhale and Lokmanya Tilak played prominent role in the activities of the Congress and shaped its ideology. During the initial 20 years of the moderate phase, the Indian National Congress was a petitioning and praying association of men of means. The leaders were moderate in their political views and liberalism was their professed ideology. The discontent against the moderate leadership found expression in the emergence of the extremist faction under the leadership of Lokmanya Tilak. The partition of Bengal by Lord Curzon in 1905 was the turning point in the development of the nationalist movement at the all India level and especially in Maharashtra. The differences led to the vertical split in the Indian National Congress at the Surat session in 1907. The death of Lokmanya Tilak in 1920 marked the end of one era and the beginning of the new era, which is now the second phase of INC. The time period was 1920 to 1947. The Maharashtra Pradesh Congress Committee was divided on the issue of the non-cooperation movement under the leadership of Gandhi. After the non-cooperation movement was called off by Gandhi, in February 1922, C.R. Das, Motilal Nehru advocated entry into the legislature and formed the Swaraj Party. In Maharashtra, Swaraj Party was formed under the leadership of N.C. Kelkar. The Swarajists in Maharashtra contested the 1923 elections and entered the Legislative Council. The Congress Socialist Party was another significant group within the Congress Party. It was led by Ashok Mehta, Achyutrao Patwardhan and Yusuf Meher Ali. This section opposed the acceptance of ministerial offices in 1937 by Congress. They abstained from contesting the elections to the Constituent Assembly in 1945. The disappearance of the non-Brahmin movement and increasing participation of the non-Brahmins in Maharashtra Congress coincided with the emergence of the Hindu Brahmin organizations. Hindu Mahasabha was established in 1915 as a social and cultural organization of the Hindus. In the post-Tilak era, the Hindu Mahasabha became the political front of the Hindu communalists who were critical of Gandhi and the Congress. As the Hindu Mahasabha gradually became a political front, its socio-cultural role was taken over by the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh (RSS), established by Dr. Hedgewar, a Maharashtrian Brahmin, in 1926. The RSS attracted a large section of the Brahmin youth. However, this symbol of organized Hindu nationalism failed to attract the bulk of the non-Brahmin masses in Maharashtra owing to its Brahminical image. The Hindu Mahasabha and the RSS contributed to intensifying the Brahmin-non-Brahmin cleavage in Maharashtra. Now let's discuss the non-Brahmin movement. The emergence of the non-Brahmin movement in Maharashtra was the expression of the revolt against the dominance of the Brahmins. The discontent prevalent among the non-Brahmins in Maharashtra was institutionalized by Mahatma Jyotirao Phule. The non-Brahmin social reformers like Mahatma Jyotirao Phule waged a war against the caste system and the Brahminical social order by organizing the Bahujan Samaj. The liberal-minded intellectuals from the upper castes like Lokhitwadi and Justice M.G. Ranade were sympathetic to the non-Brahmin movement. Mahatma Jyotirao Phule and the Satyashodhak Samaj. Mahatma Jyotirao Phule occupies a unique position among the social reformers of Maharashtra. Phule was born in 1827 and was a Mali, that is gardener by caste. The Mali caste was among the lowly castes in the social hierarchy. Phule suffered the social and economic disadvantages being a member of the Shudra, at present one of the significant OBC castes. His early thinking was molded by the Christian missionaries who taught him at the Scottish Mission School. He was deeply influenced by the writings of Thomas Paine, the most significant being The Rights of Man. He started the first non-Christian girls' school at Pune in 1848. He educated his wife Savitribai, who later became his collaborator in the cause of education. He started the first school for the children belonging to the untouchable castes in 1851. And in the next year, he set up the Society for the Teaching to Mahars, Monks and other Atishudras. These were certainly revolutionary steps in the context of the times during which he lived. With a view to give institutional form to his revolt against the Brahminical social order, Phule and his associates established the Satyashodak Samaj in 1873. This marks the beginning of the non-Brahmin movement in Maharashtra. The Brahmin orthodoxy reacted strongly against it. Phule mounted strong attacks against the leaders of the Brahmo Samaj, the Prarthana Samaj, the Sarvajanik Sabha, and the Indian National Congress for failing to take concrete measures to improve the lot of the masses. He felt that these organizations were dominated by the Brahmins and therefore they were not truly representative. The anti-Brahmanism of the Satyashodak Samaj was directed not against individual Brahmins, but against the system that permitted Brahmin preponderance in social reform matters. Phule maintained that religion is the relation between God, the Creator, and man, his creature. Phule criticized the theory of Varna Dharma, that the religious duties are made identical with the duties of one's profession. He opined that social reform is possible only when we understand religion properly. The next stage of the non-Brahmin movement was the one led by Chhatrapati Shahu Maharaj, in which there was a revival of the Satyashodak Samaj. So after the death of Phule in 1890, there was a decline in the Satyashodak movement. This was revived by Chhatrapati Shahu Maharaj, the ruler of the princely state of Kolhapur in the southern Maharashtra. His reforming efforts supplemented the activities of Mahatma Phule and contributed to the consolidation and spread of the non-Brahmin movement in Maharashtra. However, his victory in the fight of the Brahmins during the Vedokta movement, his success in establishing the rights of the non-Brahmins to perform Vedic rites, in fact, strengthened the upper castes, namely the Brahmins and the Kshatriyas. Notwithstanding this criticism, it must be accepted that Chhatrapati Shahu Maharaj of Kolhapur rendered very valuable services to the cause of the upliftment of women, the untouchables, their education and employment, and of that working class. In the very first year of his ascending to the throne in 1894, Shahu Maharaj issued a directive abolishing the system of forced labour. In 1902, he issued an order reserving 50% of the administrative posts under his government for the candidates belonging to the backward castes. Shahu Maharaj was a progressive ruler who advocated free and compulsory education. He devoted the last years of his life for the improvement of the conditions and status of the untouchable castes. Separate schools for the untouchables were closed down and they were made to study in schools belonging to the upper classes along with high caste students. Untouchables were permitted to practice as lawyers and compete for and occupy positions traditionally regarded as the preserve of the upper caste. The next stage we shall study is the decline of the Satyashodhak movement. This process started during the times of Chhatrapati Shahu Maharaj. The concept of Bahujan Samaj, that is, the unity of Shudras and Ati Shudras, propounded by Phule, was not acceptable to the aristocratic Marathas. The movement degenerated into a casteist front of the high caste aristocratic Marathas. The Marathas, aspiring to be Kshatriyas, converted the Satyashodhak Samaj into the non-Brahmin party in 1961. The non-Brahmin party contested the elections to the Bombay Provincial Legislature in 1920, 1923 and 1926 without any noteworthy success. This party neither had any ideology nor any program and could not garner the support of the disillusioned non-Brahmin masses. Its gain was creating political consciousness among non-Brahmin masses and build the self-confidence that they had the potential to be the ruling class in a democratic polity as they possessed numerical strength. This realization and the broad-based nature of the freedom movement under Mahatma Gandhi led to the submersion of the non-Brahmin movement into mainstream nationalist movement in the 1930s. So now let's look at the post-1930 developments. These disillusioned non-Brahmin masses were attracted towards Mahatma Gandhi as the entrenched Brahmin leadership in Maharashtra Congress was opposed to Gandhi. As a result, the non-Brahmin masses in Maharashtra joined the civil disobedience movement under the leadership of Keshavrao Jedhe. In the 1930s, the non-Brahmins were numerically superior than the Brahmins within the Maharashtra Congress. They naturally aspired for organizational positions. However, these positions continued to remain with the Brahmin minority. This set in intra-party rivalry between the Brahmins and the non-Brahmins. B.G. Kher, a Brahmin by caste, was not acceptable to the non-Brahmin majority. They supported K.F. Nariman, the president of BPCC, because he was a Parsi, a non-Brahmin. However, Kher became the chief minister of Bombay province with the blessings of the High Command and support of the Brahmin and Gujarati members. The non-Brahmin members were very unhappy about this dominance of the Bhaiji Sherji. Its indication was the intensifying differences between the organizational wing and the ministerial wing after Jedhe became the president of MPCC in 1937. The pattern of 1937 was repeated in 1946. Kher became the chief minister with the support of Sardar Patel and Gujarati members. The non-Brahmin leadership was infuriated as they felt that the claim of the non-Brahmin majority was ignored. The differences between the organizational wing and the ministerial wing intensified. Thus, the Brahmin-non-Brahmin controversy became a major concern for the Congress leadership on the eve of independence. So finally, we can now move to the last part of our chapter. These are a few pictures of the different stages that we have seen in the movement so far. Mahatma Phule, his wife Savitribai Phule, Rajarshi Shahu Chhatrapati, the supreme leader of Kolhapur, and Mahatma Gandhi leading the civil disobedience movement. The Dalits are the Ati Shudras in the traditional caste hierarchy who suffered the stigma of untouchability and economic exploitation and political deprivation for more than 2000 years. The first initiative in the recent times was taken by Mahatma Phule and his Satyashodhak Samaj in the second half of the 19th century. Chhatrapati Shahu Maharaj of Kolhapur, who led the Satyashodhak Samaj after the death of Phule, had introduced a number of reforms in the princely state of Kolhapur to improve the lot of the Dalits. These have already been discussed in detail in the previous part of the chapter. Their efforts received support from Maharshi Vitthal Ramji Shinde and his Depressed Classes Mission Society of India towards the beginning of the 20th century. The Dalit movement received momentum in the 1920s under the leadership of late Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, who had made it a vocal protest movement. The most noteworthy contribution of Maharshi Vitthal Ramji Shinde was making the Indian National Congress to include the abolition of untouchability as one of its programs in the year 1917. The reform movement was pioneered by Gopal Krishna Valangwar in the Konkan sub-region of western Maharashtra and Vitthal Ramji Moon, Bansode and Gawai in Vidarbha. They sought to bring about awakening among the Dalits through education. In 1901, Bansode established Sanman Shodhak Nirashrit Samaj. With a view to restore self-respect among untouchables, the Samaj issued 9 commandments of do's and don'ts. It was at the request of the Maharaj segment of the Dalits, the British government established the Mahar Regiment and thereby provided opportunity for a career in military services for the Dalits in the beginning of the 20th century. The Dalit movement had little or no ideological orientation. It was primarily interested in the mobilization of their masses, formation of group identity, and social activities. In any case, it posed no threat to the hegemony of either the caste Hindus or the foreign rulers who, out of compassion, granted some concessions. The advent of Dr. Ambedkar, a Mahar by caste, brought about a total change in the character of Dalit politics in Maharashtra. The dissatisfaction with the ameliorative aims and the failure of the reform movement made Dr. Ambedkar advocate radical changes and protest tactics to highlight the grievances of the Dalits. He emphasized that the Dalit masses must learn to overcome the psychological chain of untouchability for their emancipation. He instilled the spirit of self-help, self-confidence, and self-respect among his followers. He also pol- um, he also advocated the abolition of Mahar Vatan, the land given to the Mahar community by the village in consideration of the performance of village duties. Abolition of the Vatan land would mark the beginning of their liberation from economic bondage. Unlike the reformers, Ambedkar emphasized conflict. The motto of the Dalit movement during Ambedkar's era was confrontation rather than acquiescence. He rejected Sanskritization as a method of social change and emphasized politicization, mobilization, and secularization. Dr. Ambedkar established the Bahishkrit Hitkarni Sabha in 1924 to protest the interests of his fellow men. The motto of this Sabha was educate, organize, and agitate. Dr. Ambedkar established the Independent Labour Party in 1937 and put up candidates for seats reserved for the depressed classes. The party was later named as Depressed Classes Federation. It secured 15 out of 17 seats reserved for the depressed classes in the election to the Bombay Provincial Legislature Assembly held in 1946. Thus, Ambedkar effectively organized and politicized the Dalits and brought them to the center stage of Indian politics. He educated the untouchables through his multifarious writings in several newspapers and periodicals like Muknayak, Bahishkrit Bharat, Samta, Janta, and Prabuddha Bharat. He made them conscious of their rights and prepared them mentally for a long-drawn war against the Hindu social order. Dr. Ambedkar's ultimate act of revolt against the Hindu social order was the total rejection of Hinduism itself. His first announcement of his intention to convert to some other religion came as early as 1935, but the actual act of conversion came much later in 1956. Thus, the transformation of a social reform movement into an effective and vocal protest movement under the charismatic leadership of Dr. Ambedkar was the most fruitful and eventful phase in the evolution of the scheduled caste politics in Maharashtra. This brings us to the end of the first chapter. Thank you and keep watching our upcoming sessions.